Thank you so much for joining me today. This video is the first video in a series stemming from an interview that I recently did with Barnhardt. Now, Anne is responsible for a video that I'm sure many of you are familiar with called Diabolical Narcissism. I mentioned the other day in a video that I would be doing the interview with Anne, and I invited friends from the channel to leave questions for Anne, and many of you did, and I really appreciate that, and I did get your questions to Anne. This video is a two-part video answering the question, how were narcissists made? How did they get so evil? And Anne goes into considerable length and depth describing that. So it was about 40 minutes. I understand with post-traumatic stress disorder and, for a lot of victims who are just now clearing some of that brain fog out, I know it can be hard to focus. So I have split this video in two, and it is specifically addressing what it is that creates narcissism based on Anne's research. Before I get going with this video, I just want to take a moment to thank our friend Jennifer very much for your donation to our channel's PayPal account. It is your continued support that allows for video series like this to be created. So I really want to thank you, and let's get to it. Hi, I'm Kim, and you're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse get free and stay free. Today, I am absolutely honored to have a special guest with us, and most certainly you guys know who she is. It is Anne Barnhardt, and Anne is responsible for a body of work we are all extremely familiar with, Diabolical Narcissism. Anne, how you doing?
Oh, I'm just a young kid living the dream, and thank you so much. And I'm so happy when I received your email. I had a general idea, knowing how many views there were of the different mirrored versions of my video, that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, and of course the feedback I get in my email box, and it makes my day, because that's why I made the video. That was the prayer, that all of these people out there would for once be able to sit down, watch something, and say to themselves, oh my gosh, that's what happened in my marriage, or oh my gosh, that's what the deal was with my parents, or oh my gosh, that's what happened to me at work, or whatever it is, And so, yeah, I recorded it in 2016, so it's been every bit of 3 years now. It has been a steady stream of emails of people just sending in saying, you just explained my entire life to me. And I'm like, yay, yay. That was everything that I went through, and what I went through with it, I know is mild compared to what so many people out there, my heart breaks for people who end up married to a DN. I mean, I can't even, mine was nothing like that. Mine was actually just a friendship, the big one for me. And I also encountered diabolical narcissism in my work, because I was in the financial industry. Hello. And there's a bunch of DN psychopaths in the financial industry. And so, but it was able to inform everything. And then I'm able to explain it to everybody and put to it the preternatural aspect, meaning the diabolical aspect, which nobody in mainstream psychology, psychiatry, nobody wants to talk about that, because they're all a bunch of drug dealers, and they want to convince you that this can all just be medicated away, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, no, you cannot have a complete discussion of this concept until you bring the preternatural, the demonic, into it. So there you go.
Absolutely. When I watch your video, you so accurately cover, where it's so prevalent in politics. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In the financial world, in the business forum. At my channel, we are dealing with it on a very, very deep and personal level. These are people that have been led to believe that this monstrous thing was their soulmate. In many cases, male or female, it is the co-parent of their children.
Yep.
And it's one thing to think you're sitting across from one in a cubicle. It's quite something else when you have had intimate sexual relationships with one. I mean, this overwhelming feeling now that you've been raped. And of course, Joyce M. Short has been on a campaign for years, you know, talking about the rape aspect of that, because people are so deceived into having sex with them, you know.
Yeah.
It's horrifying for people because they enter into it. And I think when you go into the corporate world, you know, you kind of heads around the fact that, you know, some of them may not be, you know, too friendly, or they may not really have your best interest at heart, you know, in any, or in politics, you know, you expect a stab in the back kind of environment, but not in your home, not in your bed.
Not in your bed. Yeah.
The parent teacher meeting, you know, not across the dinner table or in your shower, you know, it's, and it feels so personal to people, but it's the same for all of us. There's nothing personal about it. They do this to every partner, everyone. And then I'll tell you, for me, it was overwhelming because truly it felt personal. And I started to hear my story word for word out of the mouths of perfect strangers in India, Spain, Russia. I mean, all over the world. Right now, my hair is standing on end. And I just realized, oh my God, it's everywhere. This, my friend, is not mental illness. Mental illness doesn't transcend the globe like this.
And I want to make clear that I do believe that there is such a thing as mental illness. And I'm not completely 100% against psychiatry and the use of certain medications sparingly, and with the humility that we don't even begin to understand how the human brain works, the chemistry there involved. I'm not one of these people who's just like, no psychiatry, no pharmaceuticals whatsoever. But having said that, I think it's obvious to everyone that the big pharmaceutical companies are just running this show, and this all plays right into their hands. So you get it on both sides. You can attempt to medicate away the diabolical narcissism itself, which will never happen. And they also have, as a market, victims of diabolical narcissists. Well, let me give you this pill to alleviate the depression, the sadness, the anxiety, whatever it is that you feel, because you don't even understand what just happened to you with this person who turned on you and like you said, in a certain sense, spiritually raped you and may have absolutely physically raped you too. So the drug companies, this is diabolical narcissism is a multi-billion-dollar market for them. And so the notion that the answer to this is not in drugs and not in chemicals, and it actually does involve the preternatural. Not only does Satan not want anybody to know what his game is, the damn drug companies don't either. And so, yeah, that's why people like us, we were talking in the warm-up before we started the interview about how you've been attacked, demonetized on YouTube. I was telling you and a lot of your audience who are new to me or have just seen my video like within the last year or 2 years or whatever, they might not realize mine was completely scrubbed from my YouTube channel for over a year because somebody watched it, didn't like what they heard, who heard in my video things that they didn't want to be hearing and got triggered. And so they flagged me. This is so funny. Your audience will very much appreciate this. They flagged my video as containing pornographic content. And I intentionally wore the dumpiest, frumpiest, biggest turtleneck sweater that I had, and it got flagged for porn. And the reason they do that, see, this is a tactic that they use, and this is for real. All they have to do is flag a video for porn. Then you have to sit and wait for someone at YouTube to physically sit down and watch an entire video to see if there's any porn in it or not. My presentation is almost 3 hours long. It took over a year for my video to be restored to my YouTube channel. That's why I tell people, mirror this, copy this. That's why we're selling hard DVD versions of it. We're selling it at a break even for $20, including the shipping. We just want copies of it to be out in the world child. I have no interest in being monetized on YouTube, and I never have from day one. It's like, nope, I'm not even touching that, because I know where that's going to end up, and I know how that's going to work. And I tell people, mirror everything. No copyright, nothing. I'm doing this for the glory of God and for the betterment of mankind and to help people out there. I don't give a crap about copyright or anything else.
Well, or any of it, even this, widespread talk and justification, the supporters of pedophilia. I
Yep.
didn't want those guys shut down. I want to know where those guys are. And, for anyone that does perceive something to fly in the face of what they believe, you would think that they would support your right to free speech, even if they didn't like you, because then they could see you. Because the thing is, you never get rid of speech. All you do is drive it underground, where it takes on a whole different dimension. And this is
what's a trademark of diabolical narcissists? When they are confronted, what do? They rage. They're like monkeys throwing their poop. That's all they can do. If you confront them at all, it's bam, rage.
Yes.
And in a certain sense, we can almost use that against them, because it just draws them out and they manifest all the more.
Yes.
So, as it says in scripture, be wise as serpent and gentle as doves, which means, you got to be a little savvy and, know your enemy and draw them out like that.
I don't know if you noticed the other day on my channel, I did a video. I mentioned that you were going to be on, and I had encouraged viewers to leave questions for you in the comments. And there were some I thought were super important, and I will bring them up, but the one that really jumped out, I think, takes us to point zero, like ground zero of the whole thing. And this is something we have tossed around in our community for years. Where'd they come from? How'd they get like that? What is the origin of this? And within our community, there is two theories. One is that they are created through childhood abuse and neglect. And many people will say, and I happen to know a woman who was brutalized as a child. She was actually sold by her drug addict mother at 2, traded for drugs, given to child sex traffickers, age 2. She wasn't rescued until 28 by the FBI. She has gone on to work with the FBI. She is responsible for freeing more children out of sex slavery. So absolutely odious things can happen to a person. They can go on to do something great. So the theory is something bad happened to them and they went to the dark side. I don't know if that's evidence. And the other theory is they're just born that way. Like they're just literally born void. So tell us your thoughts on that.
I actually cover this in the video, and you bring up childhood abuse. Oh, a staggeringly high percentage of these people were sexually abused as children. And yes, what happens? Something so evil and so traumatic happens to a person, like sexual abuse to a child. The child can't even deal with it, that they shut down. And what is the core action movement of the will that causes diabolical narcissism? A human being says, that's it, I'm done, I will not love. And they do that as a defense mechanism. And children being sexually abused, I mean, you can clearly, obviously empathize with how that thought process comes to be. And there are so many people now, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sexual abuse per se. It could be, just being beaten, physically abused, or the mental, psychological torture that a diabolically narcissistic parent can inflict on a child, gaslighting a child, projecting on a child, and of course, obviously physically beating them. At a certain point, a little human person is going to shut down interiorly, and if it's severe enough and they're not brought back out of it at some point, especially in adolescence, things really get cooked in and baked in adolescence. But
adoption is a really common thread. Many victims will say their partner was adopted.
Yep, because there are people who basically buy children, sadly, that they're now able to just basically buy children. And then also people who do foster care and then or adopt or whatever, and they're deep psychotic intention from the very beginning is to use that child as some sort of a punching bag. Now, those people are the easiest actually, and when you're dealing with people who want to, let's say, leave behind certain sins against the sixth commandment, which is covers all sexual sins. If you have a person who realizes that the sexual activities that they're engaging in are wrong and they want to stop, and they're engaging in nasty, perverted stuff, if they were abused as a child and they remember it, it's actually pretty easy, relatively speaking, to sit down, talk to those people and say, look, this is what happened to you. A lot of them can even remember the moment when they said, that's it, I'm done, I will not love another human being. They can tell you exactly when it happened. That's one category.
I'm going to end this video now at the end of Anne's first explanation as to how narcissists are created. In the second video, she gives a very different explanation. And I guess for me, at this point in the interview, I'm feeling a bit nauseated, actually. The concept that there are so many children being abused on this planet is in itself all telling of diabolical narcissism. I mean, it's unbelievable, actually, though, when you do, start to wake up to the reality of diabolical narcissism, you can see the rampant increase and widespread support even for pedophilia. I mean, this is becoming extremely commonplace. There are certain social media sites that simply will not tolerate any discussion that shines a negative light on pedophilia. And if you saw those recent TED Talks in support of pedophilia, I mean, basically shaming anyone who didn't support pedophilia, claiming it was nothing more than a form of love. So this whole concept of widespread child sexual abuse has been very, very difficult for me to, really comprehend, first of all, and internalize. Yes, I wish more than anything that this wasn't happening, but unfortunately, it's becoming more and more normalized. I'm going to move right ahead to the second part of Anne's explanation as to how narcissists are created, and I certainly found it to be a lot softer of a blow than this first explanation. That was a pretty hard hit for me. The reality that child sexual abuse has become so prevalent in our society is truly horrifying. But in addition to that, she mentions abuses like beating a child or psychological torment of a child. And unfortunately, Anne is not making this stuff up. This is very real, and there's certainly a lot of evidence to support this. But her second explanation, for me, was a lot easier to deal with, comprehend, and internalize. But in addition to that, Anne goes on to explain what it is exactly that makes them evil. I've used the term demonic possession many times, and Anne has a very interesting spin on my idea, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Anyways, I love you guys lots. I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. I hope you're having a great narc-free day.